Hi, I'm Purdy, Marketing Executive at UKFT, and I'm here with Jean Ensell, Creative Director at Ensell Taylor, as part of UKFT's British Textile Week in association with the Clothworkers Company and Campaign for Wool. We're celebrating the craftsmanship, creativity and innovation of the UK textile industry, and I'm very pleased to be here today with Jean to discuss more about textile design and what she does at Ensell Taylor. So Jean, please can you begin by telling us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Okay, well, I'm creative director at Ensell Taylor Design Studio, and we work with a team of very talented freelance designers. I guess my job really is just to set design direction, to help them with any problems that they're having, to motivate, and also I get the opportunity to do some designing myself, which is wonderful. But you know, this, as I was saying a bit earlier, this has been a very challenging time, and designing has taken a little bit of a sideline to getting everything up on developing the website, enselltaylor.com, and you know, improving our social media presence and that sort of thing, because you know, this whole, you know, with the abrupt halt of all of our normal forms of communication with our customers, our person-to-person meetings, which were very enjoyable, and trade fairs, it's, you know, just finding alternative ways of communicating what we're doing with the clients. And so it's been a learning experience. I mean, it's also a little bit confusing when you're working online with people, because I am American. And although I've lived and worked and studied and taught in the UK for over 40 years now, when I talk to people online, they don't quite know where I am, you know, so there's a little bit of confusion with that, which, you know, I forgot that I don't sound like everybody else, and that I have to remind people that yes, I do live and work in the UK.
Yeah. Companies are really having to adapt at the moment, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you tell us a bit more about how you got to where you are today and your role at Ensell Taylor?
Yes. Oh, well, how far back do you want to go? You know, I have always had an interest in fine art, and did a degree in fine art and painting. And then I went back to my studies as a mature student, and did a degree in printed textile design, and then carried on and did a master's at the Royal College in printed textile design. And then I started doing a lot of freelancing, and I had some wonderful projects, working for Anna Valentine, who's a lovely couture designer, hand painting couture garments even for some members of the royal family and various things like that. So some really challenging projects, lots of fun. And I also was working for fashion designer Sharon Guild, developing not only print, but overseeing the production for those prints. And then I had studied at Birmingham City University, and I was invited back to do some freelance designing, just to do some teaching and some visiting lecturing. And one thing led to another, and I ended up working there full time. They had some staff changes and asked me if I could come full time. So I said I would do that for a period of time, but I didn't see that as sort of a really permanent situation for me, because you know, I have a creative urge I need to make, and I love to teach. Part of what I love about having a studio is being able to work with a lot of young designers. I've always wanted to work with designers who were sort of new graduates, who perhaps there's a little bit of a space between graduation and when they're really ready to be out there designing. So we take on work placement students. I have 2 here this week, and freelancers, but of course can't do too much of that because, you know, unfortunately, nobody's paying me to teach at this point. So you can only do that to some extent. But I have some very talented people who I'm really enjoying working with. And it's always a sharing thing, you know. I learn a lot from them as well.
Yes,
You know,
definitely,
so
of course.
it's a really lovely circle.
Definitely. And could you tell us, you touched a little on who you work with, but could you tell us a bit more about who you work with and some career highlights so far?
Yes, well, you know, we sell to high street brands. We sell to H&M has been a very good customer. We sell to stationery companies. We've done a lot of work with Paper Chase. We also sell to some more high-end brands. Guy Laroche has bought some of our designs. And it's, you know, the business of designing, you make an excellent design and it can go to high-end or to couture. And it's actually the way it's printed and the way, what fabrics that they print it on. And maybe they would do a bit of embroidery over the top or some devore or something that adds value to it that makes it more couture. But actually the design is the same beautiful design, whether it's being bought by H&M or by, you know, somebody else.
Yeah. And so for career highlights, what would you pull out?
Oh, goodness. Well, I'd already mentioned sort of this hand painting for Anna Valentine was definitely a career highlight. I've had so many. I've been really lucky. Attending our first international trade fair as a design agency, you know, that was huge. Actually, it was a highlight to be working and teaching at the university. You know, I've enjoyed every step of the way, really.
No, that's lovely to hear.
Yeah.
Definitely. And in terms of the process of creating patterns and designs and prints, could you tell us what that process looks like?
Well, we like to do things, I think it's most people who go into textile design go into it because they love drawing and painting and using their haptic skills. And I know that a lot of what we do now ends up being developed on the computer. So, but textile students don't usually go into textile design because they want to work on the computer. Mm-hmm. So we still like to generate our original artwork, drawing and painting, maybe through photography, experimental mark making. I mean, personally, I really love that intersection of happenstance or serendipity and precision. Mm-hmm. You know, I really like that this subject matter, textile design, works very well for being able to be use both sides of your brain. You know, you can do something that's really creative and a little bit that you're not quite sure how it's going to work out, and then you put it together like a perfect puzzle, and that uses the other side of your brain.
Yes.
And I think, you know, that's why this is, I still think it's, you know, I find making a beautiful textile design a wonderful challenge. Yeah. And I can't imagine that I'll ever think differently about that. Yeah.
And where do you find the inspiration then? So before you start the creative process?
Well, I have just go for a walk. You know, I think that most textile designers, if you look on their phones, they probably have as many pictures of tree bark, for example, as a forestry major. I mean, shadows, tree bark, florals. I watch the news. I'm an avid news watcher, and I'm always, you know, I'm also influenced by kind of what current events and the general mood of what's happening out there in the world. And I think because I'm very interested, I have my eyes open all the time. You know, I have never been short of ideas. And people always say to me, how do you come up with the next idea? I said, well, you just start. One idea leads to the other idea, leads to another idea. I mean, I had a delightful day the other day doing some collaging. And as I was collaging this one piece, I just kept thinking about the next one and what I could do with the next one and what I could do with the next one. And I find, the worst thing you can do as a creative is just stop, because one idea will lead to another idea.
Definitely.
And I think that the fact that I have all of these ideas, maybe I didn't mention in terms of career highlights, that I'm also, I've been a participant in the Mix magazine Color Hive trend panel for about 10 years now. And it's always such a pleasure to be invited along to that. So that's a semi-annual meeting. And I also had a wonderful, I was asked to participate in the color marketing group and do a presentation to them as well. So, it's, and I think that's because, I'm just generally kind of, my mind is bubbling all the time.
Yes. Good way to be, I think, definitely, obviously in a creative role.
Yes.
So could you talk us through briefly the key trends for the season?
Well, I think a lot of people are going to be, it's going to be a progression of ideas, not a massive change direction. So, our customers are still asking us for ditzy florals, for paisleys, for non-prints, for things that are a little bit, maybe have a little bit more longevity or a little bit easy to wear, don't make such a bold statement. But we also are looking at being inspired by sort of cottage crafts, be inspired by stitch and weave and embroidery. And then we're also, of course, sort of photographic florals and some distortions and that kind of idea of things you're not really quite sure what you're looking at, which I think is back to the news. I brought this, I thought I'd show you this one piece because this is something that one of my freelancers is working on, which I just think is stunning. So this kind of idea of this really moody, distorted floral. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's lovely. So, there are always more than one story happening, but I think at the moment, like this week, we're looking at sort of these being inspired by sort of cottage crafts. That sounds like I'm putting it down. I don't mean to put it down by saying cottage crafts, but I think a lot of people are now taking up craft skills and stitching and all, so that
definitely
feels like a strong direction at the moment.
That's great to hear about what's coming up and the different things people are looking for. So lastly, Jean, could you tell us what the British textile industry means to you?
Juno, I feel so lucky to have been living and working and studying here because the design education, especially for textile design education in the UK is renowned throughout the world. Mm-hmm. And what we need to do and what excites me about what's happening at the moment is really, sort of support the industry that supports the students who have that education, and I'm very excited by the growth of digital printing because I think that will enable the British textile industry to be more competitive with some of the other countries that are largely now associated with screen printing and the printing processes. So, and the support that I've had with UKFT over the years has been tremendous. And it's just nice to know that there's somebody out there kind of rooting for us, because especially now, it's,
Of course, yes, definitely. Well, thank you very, very much, Jean, for talking us through all of that. For those of you watching, you can find out more on www.ukft.org. And if you follow the British Textile Week hashtag on social media, you'll also find more interviews, trends and tales about British Textile Week.